everyone, it's Alice, and today I thought we could do a little spring TBR. I love spring. I think it's a really wonderful season, and I'm really enjoying the days getting lighter and brighter. So I've picked out a bunch of books that I'm thinking I want to read over the next couple of months, and we're just going to take a look at them. I'm not super good at sticking to these TBRs, but you know, I'm just going to tell you about the books, and we'll see how it goes. Firstly, we have a book that I am actually 100% sure that I am going to read because it's our spring book club pick for my Patreon book club, and it's A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. And this is historical fiction. It's set in Moscow in 1922, and we meet this man who is sentenced to house arrest for some reason. And he spends like decades in this like attic at a hotel or something like that, and that's all I really know. I've heard really good things about this, so I don't really feel like I need to look that much more into it, and we've decided we're gonna read this book, so I'm gonna do it. And I'm really looking forward to it. I've heard so many good things, and I've heard it's really well written, and I'm really looking forward to reading it and discussing it alongside my lovely patrons. Secondly, we have got a book I got fairly recently. It's Love and Fury by Samantha Silva, and I've said this before, but I'm gonna say it again. This cover is just so good. It's doing so much for me. I think it's so pretty. And this is also historical fiction, and it's like a fictionalized version of the life of Mary Wollstonecraft, who was one of like the founding feminist philosophers. And I think the story is about her giving birth to her daughter. And as she's doing that, she sort of retells the story of her life. And I think it's sort of like she tells the story to her daughter, who is about to come into the world, who, by the way, the daughter is Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein. I really like fictionalized stories about real historical figures, as I always feel like I do learn quite a lot, even if it is mostly fiction, because I like looking things up and seeing if they're real. So I'm really looking forward to this, also because I think Mary Wollstonecraft is a very interesting person, and I've heard the writing of this is excellent, so I think this is gonna be great. Then we have got another novel based on a true story. Apparently I'm really drawn to those these days. It's The Personal Librarian by Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray. And this is again historical fiction, and we follow this personal librarian named Belle who worked for J.P. Morgan, and she became like a fixture in the New York society scene, but she has this secret. And I'm pretty sure the secret is that she is half black, which at the time was apparently not okay because back then everyone wore asswipes. I also really like the cover for this one as well. It just makes me feel like it's gonna be a really engrossing story, and it seems like it's gonna deal with a lot of very interesting themes. So really looking forward to this, and it also has like so much praise on the back. Moving on to something a little bit different, we have These Violent Delights by Micah Nemmereber, and I am really excited about this book because I recently saw another booktuber that I follow review this book, and she loved it, and that made me even more excited to read it. I was already looking forward to it, but you know, I have a lot of books, and sometimes seeing a really good review of one sort of bumps that book up my very, very long TBR list. The story is about these two men who meet at university and are immediately drawn to each other, and it says that their friendship turns into this all-consuming intimacy, and apparently like it gets really volatile, and then there's something about an act of violence, and all of it sounds very interesting. I do love a good book with an academic setting, and I've seen this on several like dark academia book lists, which I love. So I'm really looking forward to this, even though it is slightly massive. Like, it's not a slip of a thing, but then again, neither am I, so I can't really complain. Then we have got something a little bit different. It's Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Sugimura, and this is really high on my like translated books TBR, and I really do want to read more translated works this year, and this one sounds really great. Again, we have a really great cover, and the story sounds kind of weird. It's kind of hard to grasp, but the story I think is about this group of students who find a portal into another world, and in this world there is a castle, and someone tasks them with finding a key, and finding that key will give them one wish or something. And then when they make that wish, the world will also disappear. But then in this world, there's also this monster or this creature called the Wolf Queen, who I think wants to eat them. It sounds very odd, but also kind of cool, I think, and apparently the plot is really twisty and it's kind of like a puzzle, which just sounds like a lot of fun. Next, we have a book that I have had in several TBR videos, I think, but I still haven't read it. But then every time I sit down to make one of these videos, I see this book and I'm like, oh yeah, I should mention that book. It's Love in Color by Bolu Babalola, and this is a short story collection that retells some of the most beautiful love stories from history and mythology. I'm not a huge romance reader, as I'm sure a lot of you know, but I do love history and mythology, and I do really enjoy retellings, and this book also has a great cover, and I just gotta do it. Last of the fiction, before we do some poetry and some non-fiction, I have got The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. And the thing is, I'm putting it on this TBR, but I also am very apprehensive about reading this book. I've had this book since it came out, and there's just something about it that makes me feel a little bit like, I don't know. I love Station 11 by this author. It's one of my favorite books. And I've just seen so many mixed things about this book that it makes me very nervous. It says that this book is about these two events. It's about the collapse of this Ponzi scheme, and it's about this mysterious disappearance of a woman from a ship. And that's all I really know. To be honest, I've never really been able to grasp what this book is about. I just bought it because it's Emily St. John Mandel, and I wanted to read it. I'd love to hear if any of you loved this book, and I would love to hear why. Tell me all about it in the comments. And if you're one of those people who read this book and didn't like it as much, don't tell me about it right now. Maybe we can talk about it once I've read this book and I review it. Because right now I need, like, encouragement. Then I've picked out these two poetry books, and the first one is very appropriate for the season. It's A Poem for Every Spring Day. And this is one of those, like, collections, or maybe you would call it an anthology, and it's set up in a way where you're supposed to read a little bit of poetry every day, and it has loads of different poets and themes and all kinds of things, but mostly, obviously, they relate to spring. To be honest, I'm probably gonna read this in like bigger chunks. I know you're supposed to read a little bit every day, but that doesn't really work for me for whatever reason. I like reading bigger parts at once, and so I'm probably gonna do that with this. I did that with another one of these that I read a while ago, and it worked really well for me, so I'm gonna do that. I also do just love these editions. Like, these covers are just immaculate. The second poetry book I have is Dearly by Margaret Atwood. And to be honest, I don't have that much to say about this because I don't really know what it's about or what themes it deals with. I just know it's Margaret Atwood, and I've seen some really good reviews. And I'm just gonna head into this blind, and I'm sure I'm gonna like it because Margaret Atwood is a really good writer. The last two books that I've got are nonfiction. So we have got The Invention of Nature by Andrea Wolf, and this is basically a biography about Alexander von Humboldt, who was a German naturalist and whose ideas sort of changed the way that we see the natural world. And he sort of started, I think, sort of modern environmentalism, which is really interesting. I think the idea that he's most famous for is introducing the thought that nature is all interconnected on like a global scale, and it's not just there for us humans to use and enjoy, it's there for everyone, and it needs to be preserved and protected. And I think it's really interesting because nature is so strong and yet so vulnerable all at the same time. Like, one little thing going wrong can have like massive consequences. I do love a good biography, and I love reading about nature, and this guy went on a lot of expeditions that we get to read about, and you all know how much I love a good adventure. So this just feels like the perfect storm for me, and it also has glowing reviews, which makes me very excited. Lastly, we have got another book that I'm pretty sure I've mentioned in other TBRs before. It's The Story of More by Hope Jahren. And this is a book about climate change, and I do want to read it, but I am also slightly fearful because I read The Uninhabitable Earth, like, it's been a couple of years now, I think, and that book really just took it out of me, and it made me not want to read any more like books about the environment. But then I also really care about the environment and I want to learn more, and books is like my favorite way of learning about things, and so I want to dip my toe back in, and this seems like a slightly more positive book. It sort of focuses on how humanity's desire to always have more is like one of the reasons we're in this trouble we're in, but Hope Jahren sort of explores how that need for more might be a part of the solution to the problem, if you will. I've also read another book by this author, and so I already know that I like her writing style, and she has like a PhD and she's won several like prizes, and she's just a really clever lady, and I really like those. Okay everyone, those were all the books that I had to show you today, and that was my little spring TBR. I guess it's not that little actually, there were a lot of books, and I also do know of some other books that I also want to try and read this spring, so you know, we'll see how many I get to, but I'd love to know what books are on your spring TBR and what you're looking forward to reading in the next couple of months. And as usual, links to my Patreon and other social media will be in the description, and I will see you soon. Bye!